Are you looking for some creepy vibes this Christmas season? Are you a little bit over the sweet, sentimental, saccharine nature of Christmas movies and books? You are in the right place because I am sharing all of the Christmas horror books I plan on reading this season. At its core and in its original form, Christmas was meant to really be conscious of the season we are transitioning into and how you have the winter solstice making things far more darker and the weather is changing, and how do you move through something that is so scary, which makes the Christmas season all the more interesting as a setting for horror novels, especially when you think about what Christmas represents to many societies today. Warmth, coziness, childhood nostalgia, consumerism, buying things. Nothing is better than when a horror novel can take something so sweet, so innocent, and twist it. In one way or another, the books included on this list utilize Christmas Day or just the Christmas season as aspects of the story's settings. Let's start off with the books I plan on physically borrowing from my local library. There's only one, and it is a new release. It's called Christmas and Other Horrors, an anthology of solstice horror. This short story collection is edited by Ellen Datlow, who also edited an anthology that is themed around Halloween. That short story collection didn't really do it for me. I'm hoping this one does, because you don't see too many repeat authors that are in this one that were in that other collection. You have people like Stephen Graham Jones, Josh Malerman, Alma Katsu, Cassandra Khaw. There's some really heavy hitters in this collection that makes me very, very eager to pick this one up. I have two books that I'm going to be checking out the audiobook through my library. The first one is going to be so iconic, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I can't think about anything more creepmas than this story right here. I read a book recently that taught me that ghost stories were a huge part of how Victorians celebrated the Christmas season. We need to bring that back. Ghost stories and Christmas should go hand in hand. And when you think about it, especially the way I grew up, the Christmas Carol story, whether I'm watching the Muppets version or I'm going to go see a community theater play where you have the story depicted, it's a huge part of Christmas in the United States, at least where I'm growing up. But I've never actually read the original source material for this story. It's only about 4 hours in audiobook format, so I'm really excited to get to this finally. And then I'm gonna check out The Winter's Child by Cassandra Perkins. This book is described as a ghostly winter mystery with a gothic modern flavor to it. There's also child abduction in this one, and I know that's a big trigger for people, so I thought I'd give that warning. Moving on to the physical books that I own that I plan on reading this Christmas. Candy Cane Kills by Brian McCauley. I literally have no clue what this book is about. I know it's a slasher that takes place on Christmas. So far, people have been talking really highly about it. It's super quick too, so it's gonna be quite fun. I hope it packs a big punch. Okay, now let's move on to all the books in my Christmas horror TBR that are available on Kindle Unlimited. And prepare yourself, because it's a long list. I just searched Christmas horror book on Kindle, and these are the things that popped up. I liked their covers. I liked at least something they said in their book summary. I just kind of was skimming through. The first one is Santa Took Them by William Malmberg. This one sounds like a very gory slasher, and I think there might even be some child harm in this one. I think there's a family annihilation killer here, and then they write Santa took them on the wall in somebody's blood. So there's that. On a possible lighter note, I have Yuletide Invasion by J.C. Moore. I'm still on my Alien kick, so this is right up my alley. It's set in 1986, takes place during Christmas. I think there's a blizzard and also an alien invasion. I'm intrigued. Another book I found on Kindle Unlimited that sounds promising is Christmas in the Empty Cabin by E. Reyes. This one's distinctive because it doesn't just talk about the Christmas season. It kind of takes the holidays post-Halloween all the way into Christmas season. So it also covers Dia de los Muertos and also Thanksgiving. I love seasonal horror. I love the contrast of the season as being cozy family time, and then you contrast that with blood, guts, and gore. And then I have a more sillier selection, Abominable Snowman. This one's by Brian Barry. I think I've seen this one make the rounds on BookTube. It's my turn to give it a shot. It sounds very trashy, fun, light. And that cover, come on, that cover cover. And then we have Return of the Living Elves. I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing at these covers. This one is by Brian Asman, and I want to say I've heard some positive things about this one. The reviews of this one on Amazon aren't half bad. If I ever find myself in an extreme horror mood that is probably more on the serious side, I'm gonna check out Santasploitation by Judith Sonnet. This one is pretty popular within the horror community. They were actually the author of the first extreme horror novel that I ever read. There's a lot of humanity that was still present in the clown hunt, right alongside like some dark stuff that characters did. So I'm thinking it might be very likely that I will enjoy Santasploitation if I already enjoyed their work before. And then we have Literally Dead, which is a ghost story anthology edited by Gabby Triana. This one again is bringing the ghost story back to the Christmas season. The bulk of the authors who contribute to the short story collection, I'm unaware of them, but it's always fun to get a taste of other authors' works that I'm not already familiar with. But V. Castro is also in this one, as well as Clay McLeod and Haley Piper. Those authors I know, and I'm really looking forward to looking at their stories. The next book I have on my KU TBR for Christmas is Seasons Creepings by Ronald Kelly. This past Halloween, I read his Halloween short story collection and really loved it. It was a 4.5 for me. I'm always hesitant to try out short story collections that are written by just one author. Like, I'd never do it for somebody I'm not familiar with. And I only did it for his Halloween book because I was really interested in Halloween. So it worked out for me, even though that was a gamble. This one won't be as much of a gamble because I know his stuff and I know I like it. But I seem to be really into short story collections this season. Next up, I have Christmas Eve on Haunted Hill by Brian Smith. I read his works in one other short story collection, and then I did read one of his extreme horror novels. I do not know if this is going to be extreme horror or not, but I did like the one I did read from him. 10 years ago on Christmas Eve, Silas Herzinger donned a Santa suit and took an axe to 15 members of his extended family. His youngest son was the sole survivor. A decade later, that son somehow has to grapple with his dark past, going back to that old family home on Haunted Hill. Then there were two books within the Ravenhill Butcher series that really caught my eye. The first one is The Christmas Morning Massacre. This one is a slasher horror novel that includes a killer Santa, two murdered girls, a killer that was never found. The small town of Ravenhill is not as perfect as it may seem. And the second book by the same author is called Noel Hell. I absolutely love the play on words here. You have two gal pals that find themselves at a ski resort and, slashery stuff ensues. The book summary doesn't tell me the time period or era that these books are taking place, but it seems like it's building on this larger universe that centers around this town of Ravenhill. I love that kind of world building within the horror genre. It seems like fantasy is the place where you get a lot of that world building, so to see it done within a horror novel or like a horror novel series, really cool to me. The covers of these two books suggest that it might be an homage to vintage horror or maybe actually set within the 80s or 90s. Then I have Horror Stories to Ruin Christmas. I'm not too sure based off of the book summary if this is a short story collection or a novel, but there are over 20 authors contributing to this work. I'm going to assume it is a short story collection and it feels very similar to the other two, except those are going to be like in novel format, but you have a world that is being built. In this book, you have a town called Serenity Falls having the worst Christmas of its life. So I think we're getting like each day, piece by piece, the story being told to us. And people seem to really like it based off of the Amazon reviews. And then we have another short story collection, Twisted Tales of Holiday Horror. The contributors of this short story collection are the Sisters of the Black Pen, which is an all-female like horror writers group. Where does the Christmas train really go? Is Santa filled with good intentions? What could go wrong when a Christmas wish comes true? I love it. The cover gives me like just old school nostalgia and just add that creepy element, and I'm there. I'm here for this. Let's move on to all the books on my TBR that can be found on Scribd. This first one here, Hark, the Herald Angels Scream, is a short story collection that I did actually start last Christmas season that I hope to finish up this time around, now that I have an audio, because I did just read that first time around with a physical book. If I remember correctly, this short story collection was kind of a mixed bag for me. There were a few gems here and there, but again, I didn't finish it. So I'm hoping I have a more positive take on it once I've wrapped up the whole book. Another book with an amazing cover. This one is called Snowball by Andre Gonzalez. This book sounds like if Elf on the Shelf had an evil doppelganger running amok during Christmas season, what would they do? what bad things could befall this family. So this one sounds twisted. I also have on my list Where the Dead Go to Die. This one is described as being George A. Romero meets Jack Ketchum. I think I'm gonna save this one for later in the season because it does overlap with New Year's. It has a really dreary, bleak tone to it. It sounds like it's gonna be really utilizing that wintry setting. It's post-apocalyptic, there's zombies. I feel like I haven't read a zombie book in a really long time. Like the last one I read was Warm Bodies, and that was in February. So I'm due for a good one. Like they're not your typical, like I wanna eat brains kind of zombie. I think there's like a unique spin to it that this book utilizes. And then I have my one and only nonfiction book on this list, which I've already gotten to, and that is The Fright Before Christmas by Jeff Bellinger. This book dove so deeply into all the pagan origins of this holiday and really gave me an appreciation for Christmas beyond the way it is packaged as this like solely consumerist, capitalist, Christian holiday. And it just really affirmed my approach to the season where I like to pull out like the dark sides of it, those darker threads, the creepy aspects, because that's truly the origin of this time of year. The audio is available on Scribd, but I do highly recommend you get a physical copy. I got one for myself. The illustrations are gorgeous, and I just feel like with nonfiction, I always like having physical copies of those. The next two books on my TBR that are available on Scribd are kind of a gamble because I haven't heard anything about these authors. I just kind of stumbled upon them by searching on the app for Christmas horror. The first one here is an anthology. It's called The Devil Meets You on Christmas Day. What appealed to me about this one though is that it feels like it's gonna give me that like gothic, paranormal ghost vibe that I'm really wanting to lean into this Christmas season. And then there's the 12 Days of Christmas Horror by Rick Wood. There is a sadistic Secret Santa gift, a murderous telekinetic fairy, and a nativity full of the dead. Say no more, I'm intrigued, I'll give it a shot. Like any good and long TBR list, this is just a pile of possibilities for me to pull from depending on my mood or my circumstances. But I actually was surprised to note that my last TBR for the Halloween season, which was incredibly long, I actually got to probably about like 85–90% of those, so who knows? But please let me know, what did I miss? What are some Christmas horror novels that you absolutely love that you think I should try? I couldn't be more excited for the beginning of the Creepmas season, so drop those recommendations down below. I'll see you on my next video. Bye!